Good evening from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Stephen Clark, editor of SpaceflightNow.com, and welcome to our live coverage for tonight's scheduled launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We're looking live at a view of Launch Pad 40, where the Falcon 9 is standing vertical 229 feet or 70 meters tall. Now, 1 hour and 7 minutes from liftoff time. Launch tonight is scheduled for an instantaneous window at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 23:11 UTC, carrying Italy's sixth Cosmos SkyMed radar imaging satellite into orbit. This is the second launch attempt for this mission, following a scrubbed countdown last night due to some dismal weather over the Space Coast with a steady rainfall and poor visibility and low clouds. SpaceX pulled the plug on last night's launch attempt just before the start of propellant loading, around 30 to 40 minutes before liftoff time, and retargeted the mission for liftoff tonight. Weather conditions are much improved this evening, where there's a 70% chance of acceptable weather for a launch tonight at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time. However, the weather is not ideal. There are still some clouds over the Space Coast this evening. Winds are still breezy. However, those conditions do look to be within constraints for launch this evening at 6:11 p.m. The forecast also called for a moderate risk of upper-level winds that could violate the Falcon 9's launch criteria. We haven't heard an update on those this evening, so those will be monitored throughout the countdown with a series of weather balloons sent aloft by the 45th Weather Squadron at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. You can see in this view the camera is a little jittery. It is quite breezy out here, although winds have died down and have decreased in velocity from yesterday and are currently within limits. Ground winds are currently within limits for the Falcon 9 launch tonight. A short time ago, we saw some venting from the strongback structure. That's the vertical arm on the right side of the Falcon 9 rocket in this view. That venting of gaseous oxygen vapors indicates that the initial preparatory steps ahead of propellant loading have begun. So SpaceX continues to target launch this evening at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time. Now 1 hour and 4 minutes away. SpaceX will begin loading propellants into the Falcon 9 rocket at T-minus 35 minutes. That milestone expected at 5:36 p.m., a little less than a half hour from now. Before then, SpaceX will poll the technical teams inside the control center for a go or no-go to proceed into that propellant loading step. There will also be a continued evaluation of the weather conditions this evening throughout the remainder of the countdown to make sure that all of the cloud, wind, lightning criteria are acceptable for liftoff of the Falcon 9 this evening. Again, as I mentioned before, the weather conditions are a lot better this evening than they were yesterday. However, there is a blanket of cloud cover over Cape Canaveral at this time, and conditions are breezy. And again, there will be an update also on upper-level winds still to come throughout through the countdown to make sure that winds at the high altitudes are safe for the Falcon 9 to traverse on the way into orbit tonight. Now, T-minus 1 hour, 1 hour to launch time. Liftoff again targeted for 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time, 23:11 UTC. In this view of Launch Pad 40, you can see the first stage of the Falcon 9 rocket extending about 2/3 of the length up the vehicle. That booster making its third trip to space today. Above that, the Falcon 9 upper stage of the solid white area is a brand new part of the rocket. It's a brand new element of every Falcon 9 launch. And above that is the payload shroud. This payload fairing by itself stands more than 50 feet tall. It's around 17 feet in diameter. And inside that clamshell fairing is Italy's Cosmos SkyMed second generation satellite. This spacecraft will be the second in a new generation of Italian Cosmos SkyMed radar surveillance satellites. These satellites are funded and managed by the Italian Space Agency in partnership with the Italian Ministry of Defense and the Italian Ministry of Universities and Research. The data from these imaging satellites are used both for military and civilian purposes. On this spacecraft, the main instrument is an X-band radar. This radar antenna, along with the spacecraft's solar arrays, will be deployed within the first day of the launch. These images show illustrations of the Cosmos SkyMed spacecraft in orbit with its solar arrays and radar antenna fully unfurled. The spacecraft was built by Thales Alenia Space and weighs around 2.2 metric tons fully fueled for liftoff. This spacecraft, again, is the second satellite in a new generation of Cosmos SkyMed satellites. The first 4 Cosmos SkyMed radar satellites were launched on Delta II rockets from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California on 4 missions from 2007 until 2010. Those satellites are now beyond their operating life, so Italy has developed a new generation of satellites to replace those. The first of those second generation satellites launched back in 2019 on an Arianespace Soyuz rocket from French Guiana. And this is the second of the new generation of 4 Cosmos SkyMed satellites. And then 2 more of these Cosmos SkyMed second generation satellites are slated to launch in the 2024 timeframe on a European Vega rocket. These satellites are used for a variety of applications, including national security applications for the Italian government, tracking maritime traffic and ships in the Mediterranean Sea. They're also useful for tracking changes in Earth's surfaces from climate change and natural disasters, one of which you can see an example of here, an image from a Cosmos SkyMed satellite taken back in September of last year of the volcanic eruption on La Palma in the Canary Islands. This view shows the lava flow coming from that volcano flowing into the Atlantic Ocean. You can see the track of the lava flow in this image taken from a Cosmos SkyMed satellite back in September. And in this view, also from a Cosmos SkyMed satellite. In fact, this image was taken by the first Cosmos SkyMed second generation satellite that launched back in 2019, showing the famous pyramids at Giza. These radar satellites operate in X-band and have a maximum resolution of around 1 foot or 30 centimeters or so. That allows the users to discern details as small as 30 centimeters or 1 foot, identifying features as small as cars on roads and small boats in open seas. Again, this data useful both for military and civilian purposes. by the Italian government. These highest resolution images are reserved for use by the Italian military. So once again, you're looking live at Launch Pad 40, where the Falcon 9 rocket is around 55 minutes from liftoff, weather permitting this evening. Now around 20 minutes from the time we should hear confirmation that propellant loading is underway. now less than 50 minutes from launch time. Just to give you an idea of what you're looking at live video of Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. At the center of your screen is the Falcon 9 rocket standing 229 feet or 70 meters tall. That rocket consists of the first stage booster at the bottom segment of the rocket. That booster stage is covered in some soot markings from its previous 2 missions to space and is reusable. The black band above that is the interstage adapter that sits on top of the first stage booster. And above that is the solid white upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, a brand new rocket component. The stage 2 of every Falcon 9 launch is brand new and is not reusable. And above that is the payload fairing, consisting of 2 clamshell halves. Each half of that payload fairing has been reused and has flown on 3 previous missions. So each half of that fairing is on its 4th trip to space today. On each side of the rocket, you see 2 lightning masts. So 4 lightning towers in total with the flashing hazard lights on top. Those lightning masts are connected by a series of catenary wires to protect the launch vehicle while it is vertical out of the launch pad from lightning. It's a rather gray evening here on Florida Space Coast. Here at Kennedy Space Center, a few miles away from Launch Pad 40. Above the launch pad are some scattered low-level clouds, and above that lower level of clouds is a solid overcast deck of high-level clouds. So the visibility for tonight's launch, once the Falcon 9 climbs high into the atmosphere, will not be great. The Falcon 9 will be heading southeast and then south along Florida's east coast, heading for polar orbit with the Italian Cosmo SkyMed radar imaging satellite on board. So if a launch does proceed tonight, spectators in the local area should get a view of the Falcon 9 as it climbs off the pad, at least for the first minute or so of the flight. However, the rocket will likely disappear into the clouds as it heads down range. The first stage will be coming back to a landing at landing zone 1, just a few miles south of this launch pad. That landing of the first stage is expected around 8 minutes after liftoff. So spectators in the local area should see the booster stage reemerge from the clouds during its final descent back toward the landing zone. Of course, SpaceX will have onboard camera views showing the upper stage operation as it heads into orbit, as well as an onboard view from the first stage booster after it detaches and begins its descent. So we expect to see spectacular views from SpaceX's onboard cameras, and we'll bring those to you live in flight as we receive them. Now, 41 minutes from launch time, the lights out at Pad 40 have turned on as the sun is setting here at Cape Canaveral, Florida. The update just from SpaceX's launch conductor moments ago is that the range here at Cape Canaveral is currently red for a violation of a weather rule. That rule is the thick cloud rule. It sounds like SpaceX is likely to proceed into propellant loading with the no-go weather rule in hopes that that condition improves. The final evaluation of that thick cloud rule before launch will be at T-minus 2 minutes. So the countdown can proceed up to that point in hopes that the weather improves enough, the clouds thin out enough to permit launch this evening. However, as we just heard from SpaceX's launch conductor, the weather is currently red or no-go at this time.
Launch auto has started.
The Falcon 9 countdown has now passed the T-minus 35-minute mark. A few moments ago, you may have heard the call, launch auto has started from SpaceX's Launch Control Center. This indicates that the process to load kerosene and liquid oxygen propellants into the Falcon 9 vehicle is underway. Around 46,000 gallons of kerosene, or RP1, which is a rocket-grade hydrocarbon, will be loaded into both stages of the Falcon 9 vehicle out on pad 40 over the next 35 minutes or so. In parallel, liquid oxygen, chilled to several hundred degrees below zero, is currently being pumped into stage 1 of the Falcon 9 rocket. This oxidizer will be consumed in a mixture with the kerosene fuel by the Falcon 9 rocket's Merlin main engines. Again, SpaceX is proceeding into tonight's countdown with the automatic sequence underway at this time. SpaceX now less than 33 minutes from liftoff time. The weather conditions here at Cape Canaveral are currently red due to a violation of the thick cloud rule. A blanket of high-level clouds is hanging over the Space Coast at this time. And those clouds are currently too thick for the Falcon 9 rocket to safely fly through on the way into space this evening. SpaceX, in conjunction with the 45th Weather Squadron from the United States Space Force, will reevaluate the weather conditions at T-minus 2 minutes, and they'll make the final call at that point whether to head into the final couple of minutes of the countdown and proceed with launch this evening. But SpaceX does have enough optimism to continue with the countdown in hopes that the clouds do become go for launch at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time or 23:11 UTC. Tonight's launch window is instantaneous. So if launch doesn't happen at 6:11 p.m., if there's a technical issue or the weather remains red, this mission will not take off tonight. There's another opportunity for liftoff Saturday evening at the same time if the launch does not occur tonight. Now, T-minus 28 minutes and counting from launch of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. Again, this assumes that the weather conditions do improve in time for tonight's instantaneous launch opportunity. This mission will mark the 138th flight of a Falcon 9 rocket since its debut back in June of 2010. It'll also be the 146th launch of a Falcon rocket overall that includes the Falcon 1, Falcon 9, and Falcon Heavy configurations since SpaceX's first orbital launch attempt back in 2006 using a Falcon 1 rocket from Kwajalein Atoll out in the Pacific Ocean. It's the third flight of this particular reusable booster, booster number 1052, and it's also the 122nd Falcon 9 launch from Cape Canaveral and the 79th Falcon 9 launch from this pad, Complex 40. This launch pad, Pad 40, was previously used by the Air Force's Titan rocket program, first introduced back in the 1960s. So it's the 134th launch overall from Pad 40, including Falcon 9 and various configurations of the Titan rocket family. Again, it's the 138th flight of a Falcon 9 rocket, and it'll be the 82nd of those 138 missions to utilize a reused Falcon 9 booster stage. It's also the 80th spacecraft built by Thales Alenia Space to launch on a SpaceX rocket. The lion's share of those satellites were part of the Iridium mobile telephone constellation, the Iridium Next fleet. That consisted of 75 satellites launched in groups of 10 and 5 on a series of Falcon 9 rockets from California. It's the first SpaceX mission dedicated to the Italian Space Agency, and it's continuing a very busy start to 2022, with this being the fourth Falcon 9 launch and fourth launch by SpaceX to begin this year. And it's also the fifth orbital launch to originate from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station or Kennedy Space Center this month. It'll be the fifth in 22 days. As a matter of fact, the first launch of the year was back on January 6th. So it's been a rapid sprint out of the gate to open the year. And SpaceX has another mission slated for launch on Sunday, assuming this mission gets off the ground tonight. That mission Sunday is scheduled to launch from Pad 39A, just a few miles up the coast from Pad 40, carrying another group of Starlink internet satellites into orbit. Now approaching the T-minus 24-minute mark in the countdown. Now T-minus 23 minutes and 20 seconds. In this view of Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral, you can see the frost and ice beginning to build up on the outer skin of the Falcon 9's booster stage. That frost showing up as white reflective material on the outer skin of the fuselage of the Falcon 9 booster comes from the super cold liquid oxygen being loaded into stage one at this time. That liquid oxygen is chilled several hundred degrees below zero. It's densified, super chilled oxidizer that will be consumed by the Falcon 9 rocket's Merlin main engines during the climb into orbit. Everything continuing to look good from a technical perspective this evening. No issues reported so far in the countdown. Clock's continuing to tick down to tonight's launch opportunity at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 23:11 UTC. This mission, again, is heading into polar orbit with Italy's Cosmos SkyMed radar surveillance satellite. This satellite weighs about 2.2 metric tons, built by Thales Alenia Space in Europe, and is set to join a constellation of Italian radar imaging satellites, providing data on everything from maritime traffic in the Mediterranean Sea for Italian military use, as well as data on tracking natural disasters, climate change, agriculture, and urban growth. Now approaching the T-minus 18-minute point, you're now seeing a stream of gaseous oxygen streaming away from the Falcon 9 rocket and the strong back out at Launch Complex 40. This is a customary part of the countdown, marking the beginning of chill down of that strong back structure for liquid oxygen loading into stage 2 of the Falcon 9 rocket. This process flows small amounts of liquid oxygen through through the plumbing leading up the strung back, and that will lead into stage 2. That liquid oxygen loading process will begin around 16 minutes before liftoff, less than 2 minutes from now. Also, at this point in the countdown, the kerosene load into the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket should be completed. We haven't heard confirmation of that, but that typically concludes around the 20-minute point in the countdown, a few minutes before the start of loading of liquid oxygen into stage 2, set to begin moments from now. Now, T-minus 17 minutes and counting. Again, the countdown will continue down to T-minus 2 minutes. That'll be the moment when SpaceX's launch team and the 45th Weather Squadron make the final call on whether the weather conditions tonight at Cape Canaveral will be go or no go. The last report from SpaceX's launch conductor indicated that the thick cloud rule is currently no go for launch. That was more than 20 minutes ago now, so we haven't heard an update since then. However, the cloud conditions, at least visually from our perspective here at the Kennedy Space Center, a few miles away from the launch pad, from our perspective, the cloud conditions visually have not changed over the last 20 minutes or so. There is a bit of a clearing coming in from the north. However, it's not yet certain whether that will be over the launch pad in time for tonight's instantaneous launch opportunity at T-minus at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time, or 23:11 UTC. This satellite view shows the current cloud conditions over the eastern part of the United States and over central Florida. The darkening there at the end of the frame, at the end of the clip, is due to the lowering sun angles as the sun sets here on the Space Coast. The radar shows some echoes over the Cape Canaveral area. However, it is not currently raining, so those appear to be false returns. Once again, you're looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 rocket on Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This mission will utilize a first stage booster designated 1052 in SpaceX's fleet. This booster has flown on 2 previous missions as a side booster on Falcon Heavy rockets. First flying on the Arabsat 6A mission back on April 11th, 2019, followed by the launch of the STP-2 mission for the U.S. military back in June of 2019. This side booster was the port booster on both of those missions. And you're looking on the right side of live view of the same rocket stage out on Pad 40 right now, 14 minutes from lifting off on its 3rd mission to space. This is the first mission to utilize a converted Falcon Heavy side booster for a Falcon 9 launch. This image shows the 2 side boosters, including booster number 1052 that's set to launch tonight, returning back to the landing zone in Cape Canaveral Space Force Station back in 2019 after their launch on the Arabsat 6A mission as the side boosters of a Falcon Heavy rocket. They flew again 2 months later on the STP-2 mission, again as side boosters on the Falcon Heavy mission. And booster 1052 is the first SpaceX booster to be converted from a Falcon Heavy side booster to use as a first stage on a single-stick Falcon 9. These images show that booster being rolled past the Kennedy Space Center vehicle assembly building a couple of months ago from SpaceX's Hangar X facility, rolling out to the launch complex to get ready for tonight's mission. Once again, this booster is making its third flight to space, and assuming the launch happens tonight, liftoff is now 12 minutes away. The first stage will return to landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station for touchdown around 8 minutes after liftoff. So spectators in the local area can expect to hear sonic booms as the rocket returns to Earth. Now inside of 9 minutes until tonight's instantaneous launch opportunity at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time, 23:11 UTC. The latest report from SpaceX indicates that the weather conditions remain red or no-go due to thick clouds over Cape Canaveral at this time. The Falcon 9 countdown is going to continue down to T-minus 2 minutes, according to the SpaceX launch conductor. And at that point, there will be a final call on whether the thick clouds have improved or thinned out enough to allow the launch to occur tonight.
Hold for thick cloud roll. As launch director in CaptainNet, we're ending today's launch attempt due to weather rule violation for the thick cloud rule. Last report from the weather officer indicated the cloud that was violating the rule was violating by excess of 1,000 feet. Launch control, can you confirm launch auto is ended and launch abort auto is started?
That's affirmative. Launch abort has started.
Thank you.
And tonight's launch has been scrubbed. SpaceX has called off tonight's launch due to thick clouds over Cape
And
Canaveral
for
for the
personnel,
second
we're
night
going
in
to
a
set
row.
up for
Bad
another launch
weather is going
attempt
to keep the
tomorrow,
Falcon 9
Saturday,
rocket
same
on
time.
Earth.
RC and ground stations, we begin to coordinate those times with our partners, please.
Yesterday's countdown was called off earlier in the evening before the start of propellant loading due to dismal conditions, heavy rain and breezy conditions yesterday at Cape Canaveral, and tonight thick clouds are the issue. Weather was somewhat better tonight, however, not good enough to be acceptable for the Falcon 9 to get off the ground tonight with Italy's Cosmos SkyMed radar satellite. Once again, if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live view of the Falcon 9 rocket out on pad 40, where SpaceX was counting down for a liftoff at 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. However, moments ago, SpaceX's launch team scrubbed tonight's launch attempt due to thick clouds over Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So for the second night running, SpaceX will have to scrub a launch due to bad weather here at the Florida Spaceport. The next opportunity to launch Italy's Cosmos SkyMed radar satellite will be at 6:11 p.m. the same time tomorrow night, Saturday night here at Cape Canaveral. As of the forecast issued by the 45th Weather Squadron this morning, the weather outlook for tomorrow night called for an 80% chance of good weather for liftoff. The primary concern tomorrow evening will be ground winds at Cape Canaveral. There's also a moderate risk of unfavorable upper level winds. It'll be a cold evening tomorrow, temperature dipping to around 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds out of the northwest at 20 to 25 miles per hour. Again, those wind speeds will be closely watched during the countdown tomorrow to make sure that they don't break the Falcon 9's launch limit. Good news is, despite the cold temperatures and breezy conditions, the forecast calls for mostly clear skies tomorrow with just a chance of a few clouds at the lower levels around 2,500 feet. It's not clear yet how this launch delay might impact SpaceX's following mission, which is scheduled to go from Pad 39A a few miles to the north of Pad 40. That launch was originally scheduled for Saturday tomorrow and was pushed back to Sunday following the scrub of the Cosmos SkyMed launch last night. So it's not clear whether there will be another ripple effect in the Starlink mission following tonight's scrub down at Pad 40. Once again, it's now 6:11 p.m. Eastern Time. We should have seen the Falcon 9 rocket launching at this time. However, a few minutes ago, SpaceX scrubbed the launch attempt due to thick clouds over Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This follows a scrub yesterday due to rainy weather and clouds also over the spaceport. The next opportunity to launch the Falcon 9 rocket with Italy's Cosmos SkyMed second generation radar imaging satellite is expected at 6:11 p.m. the same time tomorrow night, 2311 UTC, for those of you in other time zones for reference. This mission is again carrying Italy's Cosmos SkyMed radar imaging satellite into polar orbit. We'll see the Falcon 9 booster return to landing zone 1. The forecast right now for tomorrow night does show clearer skies in the forecast with just a chance of a few clouds at the lower levels around 2,500 feet. So it could be optimum viewing for those of you on the Space Coast or parts nearby tomorrow night. However, be sure to pack your jacket. It's going to be cold, at least by Florida standards, with a temperature in the mid-40s Fahrenheit and gusty winds out of the northwest, more than 20 miles per hour. So we hope you will join us again tomorrow for the Saturday night blastoff of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. We thank you for joining us tonight. And until then, I'm Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now, and have a good evening.